What is it about a great song that is timeless?
You know, people won't remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel. And In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida and Ride Captain Ride are feel-good songs. And when you finish hearing it, you just feel like, oh man, I feel like I'm a few steps up from where I was. And I have guys that come to me that were in Vietnam saying we were out there on the battlefield and the helicopters would go over us playing your music and other people. And you know, you got me through Vietnam, that kind of thing.
It's got to be one of the ultimate compliments, you know. It's a song you may have written in your bedroom, and now all of a sudden somebody 20,000 miles from here and you've never even met is touched by your creativity. That's amazing stuff. Now tell us about the blues experience that you created, you know, Ride Captain Ride. Talking about who kind of were your heroes that got you to start a band and start writing your own songs. Well, my heroes were back in the early 60s. I was 15 years old, and I was backing up some of the biggest R&B stars in music. Some of the biggest. Ray Charles, James Brown type of thing, Jerry Butler, Bobby Blue Bland, all these guys. They would come to Tampa, my hometown, and instead of bringing their whole big band with airfares and all these expenses, they said, we'll use Mike's band. He always has our songs down. So I was like in heaven playing with my favorite artists of all time. So that's where I got my start. You just had to know the songs. There was no rehearsal, nothing? No rehearsal. Just let me know what the set is. I'd go out and buy the records, and the band and I would learn them. And it was like that. And so that worked out real good until I got to the point where I said, I want to write my own tune. So at age 16, I started writing my own material. And people started liking it. And they said, don't stay here in Tampa, you should go to Miami, you can make it out of there. So we went to Miami. We didn't want to play bars though. So we opened up a bowling alley. We took all the bowling lanes out and made it a big concert theater that held 2,000 people. 1967, it was called The Image. And the Blues Image were the house band, so we played with everybody, including... What city? Miami Beach, Florida. No kidding. And we played with the Grateful Dead, Led Zeppelin, Frank Zappa, Moses Venture, The Cream with Eric Clapton. It just goes on and on and on. A whole summer of that. And then by that time, so many of the stars that we, like Eric Burton, I idolized Eric. Oh, sure. And he said, I just saw War 2 days ago. Did you? Spill the wine. Lonnie. Well, he said to me, if you come to LA, I will help you get a record deal. So after we heard that from enough stars, we jumped in our station wagon, the Blues Image, came to LA. We had a couple of friends that let us stay on their floor. That's where it started. But Eric helped us get booked at Whiskey A Go-Go. And we got discovered there, signed there. But a dilemma occurred, and that is this. We were a Blues Image. We were blues. Don't talk to us about commercial. We hate that word. We're not a commercial band. Not selling out. But the record company would say, hey man, you don't do anything commercial. You know, I know, it's hard, but we've gotten away with it. But we were playing with Santana, with Hendrix, Chicago, you name it. We were running away with the night a lot of times, playing our blues. But the record company gave us an ultimatum, said, Mike, either you write a pop hit or you're off the label. You can't wait around anymore. The blues ain't making it. It might be fun, but it's not selling records. So I wrote Ride Captain Ride in 10 minutes. Wow. And it became number 3 in the nation. I get a call from the Pentagon wanting to know how I knew about the USS Pueblo secret spy ship. Classified. I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. He says, we had a secret spy ship come out of the San Francisco Bay with 73 men, just like your song, and they sailed off to history. They were captured by a Korean destroyer. I said, honest man, it's just a coincidence. He said, no, it can't be. 73 men, San Francisco Bay, at
to this day, people come up to me from the Pueblo and go, "Thanks for writing that song for us."
Wow, that must have been a weird feeling, huh?
Yeah. But you know, rock and roll's like that. It's
Yeah.
very magical. A lot of synchronicity happens.
We're talking about being around the energy of like a Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Anything you can tell us about just the aura that he had?
Absolutely. Jimmy came in to a club we were playing at in LA as we were getting signed and said, "I love you guys, can I sit in?" "Sure, Jimmy." So he started coming in every chance he got. He'd come into town from being on tour, he'd come straight to our club rather than go home.
Where was the club at?
The club was right on Sunset Boulevard, just about Sunset and La Cienega, and it was called The Experience. So we had the image, now we got The Experience. And Hendrix is in there several times a week. Keith Moon, Jim Morrison, all of them jamming at the same time with us. Then finally the day came when Jimmy said, "Come over to my house after the jam, and we'll jam more there." So we went to Jimi Hendrix's house.
Where was he living then?
He was in Beverly Hills. It's called Stone Canyon Road. Right, Stone Canyon Road. So that was it. And our song became a hit. He continued to jam with us. He put a quote in Melody Maker magazine from England saying, "Blues Image is the #1 up-and-coming band." That was back then.
And to see a little British band like Led Zeppelin come up, Jimmy Page, anything you can tell us about playing around them?
Absolutely. When Jimmy came to our club in Miami, he was with the Yardbirds. And so the people that were promoting the show for us said, "Can you go pick up Jimmy? We have nobody to pick him up." "Sure." So I go over there and I pick up Jimmy and the rest of the Yardbirds. And a little 15-year-old kid, real scrawny, real small, who was with him. And as we're rolling, he says, "Oh, let me introduce you to my friend. His name is Steve Tyler. He's got a little band called Aerosmith back in Boston, but he's run away from home. So we can't really say anything, but this is him." So I met Steven with Jimmy. We jammed that night. We played that night. The next morning, Jimmy said something very complimentary about my playing to the Miami Herald newspaper. And then we became friends. Next time I saw him was 3 years later. He's now Led Zeppelin, and I'm in the Iron Butterfly. And Led Zeppelin is opening for the Iron Butterfly. They're the opening act on tour. Those posters are on sale now on the internet. I don't get a penny from it, but it's in Wolfgang's vault. And they're selling for like $3,400. Iron Butterfly with opening act, Led Zeppelin, the Fillmore East. And so Jimmy and I became real good friends, and Robert.
That's amazing.
And to this day, whenever I see anybody like that, or Gary Wright, or anybody, we always want to talk about the old days. Not like, what are you doing now? It's like, remember that time? Remember this?
What advice do you give to that musician or that artist to keep it balanced, to really find your own style?
Yeah. Well, it used to be, don't do this and don't do that. Now, it's all about, it's true. It's what you don't do that keeps you healthy, not what you do. It's what you don't do. You stay away from the party scene, from the abuse of alcohol and drugs. That's primary. You can't even begin to have a career if you're indulging in that. So I would say that first of all. Secondly, the musicians should really practice their instrument. It's not like come up with a few riffs, steal them from the bluesmen of the 20s.
Shortcuts.
That's right.
That's the legacies.
I mean, you hear and then you trace it back to 1925 or something to Howlin' Wolf.
Right.
So it's good to write your own stuff and spend time with your music, nurture it, love it, and it'll love you back.
Late 74, early 75, I'm living in Dayton, Ohio. And it wasn't Hare Arena, I believe it was like the Dayton Convention Center. But there's the guitar battle.
I knew you were going to say that.
You and Ted Nugent. Talk about that tour and you and Ted.
Ted and I became friends at our club in Miami in '67 when he came there with the Amboy Dukes. Journey to the Center of Your Mind. Now it's years later, he's solo, and I'm playing in a band. And Ted and I start playing shows together. He's headlining, we're special guesting in a local band opening. Well, after the show was over, every night Ted would say, "Pinera, come on out come jam with me. So we were jamming after every show on tour around the nation. One promoter in Detroit said, you know what you guys should do? Call the jam something. Give it a name, like the Guitar Jam, or the Guitar Wars, or the Guitar Battle. And I said, and Ted's looking at, we're laughing at each other. He says, try it. I think the people will go crazy. Just come out and jam like you're doing now, but maybe get a little rough, you know, poke each other.
Right. Spur each other on.
Yeah, like worldwide wrestling, right? So we did. We choreographed a show that started off with me coming out in the darkness looking for him, and he jumps off of his stack of Marshalls with only a loincloth, no other clothing or shoes, lands on my shoulders, and the guitar battle starts. So we called it the Guitar Battle of the Century. It tripled all our gigs, all our monies went up, and everybody said, hey, to the agency, we want to book that guitar battle. You know, it wasn't even booked Nugent or Pinera, we want the guitar battle. So that's what we did, and it worked real well. Now, I saw Ted the other day.
Did you?
Yeah, because somebody posted a jam on YouTube of Ted and I in 1971. Just him and me, no band, and it was good. And so Ted says to me, he says, you know, maybe we should get together and do some playing again, you know? I said, you want to do the guitar battle? He says, it might be fun. I said, well then, why don't we really ham it up? We'll get like the negative satanic, quote unquote, players, like Marilyn Manson's guitar player, Black Sabbath's guitar player, Insane Clown Posse, these weird guys. We'll call them the rock and roll assassins. And then the good guys, you and me and Tommy Shaw, Mark Farner from Grand Funk, the nice guys of rock. We come out thinking it's going to be a toe-to-toe, but these guys got knives and they're trying to do us in. They're swinging in on trapezes.
Right. You got to be the superhero.
That's it. Lasers, the whole bit. He says, can I use my bow and arrow? I said, absolutely, Ted. Use your bow and arrow. So that's what happened. We talked about it, and we may do a guitar battle of the century, good versus evil, maybe coming.
Wow. What can you say about the positive side of Ted, that for those that don't know?
Well, very positive. He's a dear friend, and it requires loyalty to stay his friend. I'll give you an example. We did a show recently like this, Quiet Riot, The Guess Who, about 10 bands, Badfinger, and then Nugent, and my band. Everybody wanted to go backstage to his trailer to say hello. Stars, promoters, VIPs, he wouldn't talk to anybody. But he looked out his curtain and he saw me standing out there. And he told his son, who's road managing, Sean, he says, go get Pinera. So he brings me in. I'm the only guy out of that whole troupe, because we've been friends now for 40 years. And I don't jive him about his political stuff.
Right.
Even though he'll stand up there for 10 minutes and go, Clinton is the devil, Clinton is the devil. Clinton to 500 bikers, 500,000 bikers.
Right.
That's him. So you know what he says to me? He says, I want you to come up on stage with me. I said, well, what an honor, I'd love to. So nobody else allowed in the dressing room. Now I'm on the way to the stage with him. And everybody, stars and groupies alike, are going, can you take me up there? I said, it's a tough show, man, I'm just hanging out.
Right. What song did you do?
Let me tell you what he did. He says, Sean, give me a chair for Mike. He puts a chair in front of his Marshall stack and says, sit here, man, I want you to really feel it. I said, okay, man, I'll feel it. I sat there halfway into the set. He stops the band and he says to the people, he says, you see this guy here, Mike Pinera? He's the guy that really taught me how to pick. I never knew how to pick until Mike Pinera taught me chicken picking. That was Mike Pinera's specialty, and I said, I don't remember that. But he says, this guy. So he says, Mike, strap on a guitar, let's play. Well, that was fun, but after it was over, he picked up a machine gun. That was the kind they used to put in the nest, not a personal one. It took all his roadies, everything to pick it up, and he set it up on stage, aimed at the audience. About 50,000 people, and he says, does anybody want to go deer hunting with me tonight after the show? And all these macho guys go, yeah, we want to. He says, well, I'm using this, so you know I'm going to get me some deer. They all start laughing their ass off. But that's the way he is. He's a lot of the promoters that I talked to said, I'd love to use you and Ted, man, but Ted's in this political thing. He's always on CNN and, you know, on news. He says, I don't think I can handle it. I said, man, this has nothing to do with music. That's just his personal views.
Yeah.
But
You can disagree with his politics and still love the music.
he overdoes it on purpose for shock value. Like when he says, I think we ought to get Hillary Clinton and do her in or hang her or something, you know. He just overdoes it. He doesn't really mean harm.
He loves the shock value.
I went to his house and stayed there 2 weeks as his guest. He knew I was a vegetarian, and that I meditate a little bit. So he says, Mike, you're still a vegetarian? I said, yeah. You still meditate? I said, yeah. He said, let me show you something. He takes me downstairs in this big room with a big iron door. He said, this is my meditation room, man. I said, really? He says, yeah. I got fresh fruit and vegetables in there. Go on in. I go on in. It's pitch dark. And he turns on his light when I get in there, and he slams the iron door behind me. I'm in the meat locker.
Nothing but meat.
Hanging dead. Squirrels, rabbits, moose.
Hundreds of animals.
And he says, stay in there for a while, Mike. It'll do you some good. I said, no problem. So I was in there about a half hour, 45 minutes. He comes out to let me out, thinking I was going to be freaked out. I said, it's very nice. Very nice. I like it, Ted. You're very organized. Where you have all these dead animals.
Where he cures all the meat, huh? Why is it important that these young artists today really learn about the foundation, the history of music?
It's very important because you can give the music your attention and your abilities, but if you don't give it your respect, you're missing out on a great payback that the music will give you. And when you know that Robert Johnson wrote Crossroads, not Eric Clapton, and when you hear his version from the 1930s or something, with that sound from those ancient microphones, but then when you find out that the song was written supposedly because he had made a deal with the devil for his soul, you learn these little things and it gives you an insight as to what these songs mean. And I tell you, man, you'd be surprised at some of the meanings of these songs that I've heard. Paul McCartney the other day, to give you an example, says, we were sitting there and somebody says, Paul, what is what's that song, Blackbird? What's that about? I can't quite get the meaning. He says it's about a 1930s black lady blues singer, and they used to call her Blackbird. Who would know? I'm thinking it's about a bird on the fence or something. And you know, that's the way it was with these blues artists. They had double entendres and stuff. And some of these guys like that, like Allman Brothers, Cop Statesboro Blues and stuff. Wake up, mama, let your lamp down low. You got to hear the original stuff and appreciate who did it. What I don't like is when a new group will take a riff, note for note verbatim, and throw in new words and a new melody line and call it their own, and not even give thanks to that particular. This goes out to Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters. We copied your riff, but we gave you some royalties, guys. But they don't even acknowledge it. So it's important to give those guys respect.
We'll talk a little bit about Iron Butterfly, because obviously it was a heavy riff. I mean, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida was like an ominous, sound, in that era coming out. Talk about joining a band like that and what your greatest memories of that was.
Oh, good. Well, the Butterfly incorporated the classical, light, ethereal melodies that Doug Engle would play on his keyboard. So that light classical air would go with heavy rock. Thus, the Iron and the Butterfly, light and heavy. Led Zeppelin. Give us a name that sounds like Iron Butterfly. Well, how about Led Zeppelin? Opposites, Guns and Roses. Goes on and on. So I respected the Butterfly for their sound and the fact that they had everything branded right. And you're into branding, so you know how hard that is. When I joined the Butterfly, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida had been out and was now #1 in the FM markets. Couldn't get any airplay on AM. It was too long. 17 minutes, 32 seconds. But they got the first platinum record ever issued in music to any genre. There was only gold records before In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. That was the first platinum record.
Amazing.
So I became friends with the guys. The next thing I know, my band, Blues Image, is opening for Iron Butterfly. We become tighter. Now we're jamming a lot. We're going to clubs after the tour, after the shows. And then all of a sudden they come up to me and said, our guitar player's leaving, Eric. We'd like you to come in. I know you're with Blues Image and you guys are like family. I said, yeah, but to tell you the truth, there's a reason why I would leave that band. there's not all as well there.
Yeah.
And this ain't Kansas. And so, as it turned out, my band, Blues Image, started to break up from the interior, and I went with Iron Butterfly. So I went from making like 200 a week to 200,000 a month.
Yeah.
And I paid off all my parents' mortgages and their bills and all that. Still had some left over for me.
Sure.
So I was buying stuff, houses, motorhomes, gyrocopters, which my managers took away from me. They thought I was going to kill myself. Flying over Hollywood traffic.
Yeah, amazing.
And a little
Now, was Rhino in the band before you?
No, he came in at the same time.
Okay.
Because they came up to me and said, "Hey, Eric's gone. It's between you and this guy named Rhino, but we like you both so much. We'd like to hire you both." And it turned out that Rhino and I were from the same neck of the woods.
He's from Florida, yeah.
Tampa, and so we were friends. And man, right away the band took a sudden turn. Now with what I know about music and fans and continuity, I would have taken it a little softer and not gone from being Led Zeppelin to being Cat Stevens or whatever. Doug wanted to do a lot of guitar picking and folk stuff, but I was trying to keep up the heavy stuff. So I wrote on the Metamorphosis album, first album that we did together, I wrote stuff like Easy Rider, Butterfly Blue, Stone Believer, heavy stuff. And what I loved about it was they were all really serious musicians. They loved their music. And we had a
Where were they based? Is it LA?
LA.
Yeah. What part of town?
Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah, and then when the band really made it, then each guy spread out.
Okay.
Lee bought a house in Laurel Canyon. Doug bought a real big house, estate in Calabasas.
Yeah.
And I was in my motorhome going to each guy's house and parking in their driveway for 4 or 5 days to do some writing.
Yeah. Amazing.
The wives chased me away. They said, we don't see him when he's on the road. Then we come back and he's in your motorhome all night. Forget it.
Well, I had the pleasure of doing some work with Rhino before he passed.
Yeah.
And of course, his group Captain Beyond was an amazing debut album for Capricorn. What can you tell us about Rhino as a guitar player? What made him special?
Well, of course, he had his own unique, original style. Being from the South, he was really into blues. And Bottleneck, him and Twain Allman, man, killers. And again, he too was very serious. He bought one of the first consumer professional recording machines that were available to the public, as I did, from TEAC. They had a 4-track reel-to-reel that you can overdub 4 times. Then if you wanted to bounce, you could overdub all night, 8, 9 tracks. So when we bring our demos in to the band, they had 3 or 4 layers of guitar, bass, drums, vocal, background harmony. The band said, "What do we got to go record for? You got it already." But no, you need that headroom. So Rhino would work very, very hard to get his sound. And if you listen to Butterfly Blue off Metamorphosis, you'll hear some guitar harmonies and jams that are very eclectic. They're very hard to arrange and execute, but we did. We stayed there together working out these harmonies, these riffs. People to this day say that it was their favorite album. It was better than any of the other albums. That's nice.